So now let's take a look at how we can create that shadow catcher image. I'm going to Layers and then create another render pass. And for example, this one I call shadow pass. And for the shadow pass, I would like to have my car casting the shadow, but not be actually visible. To do this, you see I need to have my car and my backdrop both as scenes turned on, but then for the rendering, the actual geometry that's being written into the file, that's only going to be what's on the second layer. And on the second layer, there is my backdrop. So for example here, now I can select Shadow Pass, and I have to turn off my environmental image. I also have to go back to my high definition image for my lighting, and then I go to my sun, and I'm going to increase the strength of the sun a little bit so that it starts to flood my environment with more light. So I kind of like burn out a little bit of my shadows, but at the same time try to be, how could I say that? I try to have a nice even gray or white color from the lower part of my image to the back part of my image. And you see that this one is a little bit too grayish. So to fix this, maybe here I might change this more to something like this. And because I'm using a sun here, it doesn't really matter where my light is positioned. It just reaches everything. And now there you can see that the gradient is less noticeable. Okay, so that is good. Then I go to sampling, and for this rendering I have set this to 100. I'm going to click render, but this will take a moment, so I'm going to pause this video, and then when it finished rendering, I will come back. Here you see my rendering is finishing. There I have a nice uniform white background, and there is my shadow. So that is our first step. And then I need to insert another render layer. And I'm going to create another pass. For example, call this one car pass. And for here, I would like only to have actually my car visible. So I go to this layer for the scene that's visible, and I need to everything that's visible on this layer also to be rendered. So it does not need to be calculated with, for example, the backdrop, because I want to have only the car in the environment. So to do this, here I can set this now to car pass. I'm going to hit save. And maybe before I do the rendering, maybe let's play a little bit with the lighting to see maybe how the color could look like. And you see the background is transparent, so I'm going to film and switch this one back in. See, this one maybe feels a little bit too dark. So there you can play with the settings a little bit, and when this is to your liking, then you can stop this. So I go into wire or shaded mode, and then here for my car pass, I can now press render. And again, that will take a moment, so I will come back when this is finished. So here now you can see my car. The backdrop is black, but if you take a look at the render layer, you see that the backdrop is actually transparent. You can, of course, if you want to save those files, you can, for example, I could save this one as an image, save as, for example, let's say this is car, and I would like to select as the file format PNG and RGBA, so it saves the alpha channel. Click save, and then I can move this one in and say save image, and this, for example, should be the shadow catcher. Because what can happen, maybe at the beginning you might hit F12 by accident, and then if you hit F12 you update each render layer, and you don't want to do this, which is why each time I clicked only on the camera for those layers, so those render layers selectively will only be updated. Okay, so having this done, now we can go ahead and actually make use of the compositor and mix all the stuff together. So for example, this car I would like to be on top of this backdrop plate. So to do this, we have to use kind of like a layer mask. So you can press Shift A, go to color, and say alpha over. And then I can drag this one in here and drag this one in there, and then use the alpha from here into the factor. Let's take a look. And actually I have to reverse the direction. So there. So you see the backdrop image is going to be mixed with this car image, and then the factor is, for example, the alpha that can be used. And now you see the car doesn't have any shadow. So to do this, you can Shift A, click Mix, and then, for example, the output out of this alpha over, we would like to mix together with this shadow pass. And instead of mix, I would like to multiply it. And you see, by multiplying it, I can use the gray values of the shadow catcher image to darken, for example, that image. And that then, for example, will create this nice shadow below my car. And I can play with the factor value a little bit if I would like to adjust the strength of that shadow. For example, 1 seems way too dark. So maybe something like 0.7 or 0.8 for that environment seems to fit well. And then the result from the multiply goes into the composite. And then for the render result, we could go image, save as, and for example, just write it into a file. And where is it? There. There's now the finished image where we have the car, including a drop shadow, put onto a custom-made drop plate. So that's a way how you can use the shadow catcher and the render layers, and for example the sunlight and environmental lighting, together with really good high definition range images to create those quite good looking product photographies inside an outdoor environment. And of course, the same works also for an interior. You just then have to build a shadow catcher that, for example, mimics, let's say, a countertop where, for example, you have a coffee machine placed on it. So the environments might be different. However, the different steps you have to follow are all the same. And that's all that's actually to it. It's a little bit of setup work, but you noticed once you have this setup done, you are very flexible with adjustments. For example, the lights or the shadow strength, the camera position. With the camera, I can just change the, for example, the backdrop plate. So once that basic setup is done, you can quite quickly generate different rendering versions of that shot without too much work. That's actually basically just a matter of clicking some buttons and adjusting some values, and you get good results quite quickly.